So I had all of that marketing under my belt and didn't even know what the word copywriting was. And then when I found copywriting, I was like, oh, I like sales and I like marketing, and copywriting is sales at scale. Basically, you take a sales conversation, you write it down, and then you use marketing channels to blast it out to a bunch of different people. I was like, oh, everything I love in one place. So ever since I discovered it, I think maybe 4 years ago, I've been doing it now.
You're listening to Copy and Conversion, where we share expert strategies to grow your business using the power of compelling sales copy. You're about to learn from the best minds in marketing how to be more persuasive, make more sales, and increase your impact with copywriting. And now your host, Brad Wages. Okay, guys, today I'm talking with Katie Thies. Katie is a copywriter and email marketing specialist who uses data-driven brand messaging and best-in-class email strategy to drive recurring revenue for her clients. Katie is a rarity in that she is a talented copywriter, but also has a solid grasp of the analytical, numbers-driven side of marketing. So she's someone I think you can learn a lot from, and I'm really excited to have her on today. Katie, how's it going?
Going great, Brad. I'm in a great mood after that intro. I wish I had written it myself, and I hope I can live up to it.
Yeah, totally. So Katie, you are currently in San Diego, correct?
Yes, for quarantine reasons, I'm back with my family in San Diego right now.
That is amazing. So you were on a trip in San Diego, just like a quick trip, and then you're going to fly home to San Francisco, and they're like, sorry, you got to stay in San Diego.
Right. So I have been doing the digital nomad thing on and off for the last few years. So I was actually spending the winter up in the mountains of Colorado skiing at Beaver Creek and Vail, which was just incredible. And don't let me go on about it because I'll talk about it forever. But then Brad and I were just catching up before this interview, and I went to a copywriter conference here in San Diego. And then when I went to get on my flight, it was canceled. So I've been in San Diego ever since then for quarantine, hanging out with my family. And then just sort of waiting that out so I can go back to the mountains and go back to where I'm from.
There you go. All right. Well, Katie, I'm definitely interested to dive into some of these questions. So let's kick it off. You are focused on email marketing these days, but your background is really copywriting. So tell me about your path to become a copywriter, because it's always sort of interesting to hear how people discovered it and decided, hey, that's what I want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I know your story of your origin story, so I'm curious to hear yours as well. But I think especially with being a copywriter, it seems like there's many different paths to get there, because many of us don't even grow up knowing what a copywriter is. And then every copywriter I know is like, at some point they read some article or hear something and discover what a copywriter is and then go, oh, I want to do that. Or at least that's what it was for me. I thought I'd had a background in marketing at different startups. I worked at a subscription box startup for a long time, and I really liked growth marketing and data-driven marketing. And I was product marketing manager at IBM as well. And then I did marketing at Walmart ecommerce. So I had all of that marketing under my belt and didn't even know what the word copywriting was. And then when I found copywriting, I was like, oh, I like sales and I like marketing, and copywriting is sales at scale. Basically, you take a sales conversation, you write it down, and then you use marketing channels to blast it out to a bunch of different people. I was like, oh, everything I love in one place. So ever since I discovered it, I think maybe 4 years ago, I've been doing it now.
Very cool. So Katie, when and how did you decide to focus on email marketing specifically and e-commerce email marketing?
So I've always been niched into e-commerce based on my background working in marketing. I loved working at Walmart e-commerce. I thought that was a ton of fun trying to optimize. You own, like my position, I owned like hundreds of different SKUs, which is like a fraction of a percent of what Walmart offers. And I was trying to optimize all of those. So, and then when I went to work for myself as a copywriter, I knew I wanted to focus on e-commerce, and I think every client I've ever had has been in e-commerce. But then I was doing a mix of websites and emails, and I still do websites don't tell anyone. I mean, this is a podcast, but don't tell anyone. I sometimes do websites for select people.
The word
But
is
I've
out.
because I was focused on messaging, and usually when you do underlying messaging projects for a client, then it makes sense naturally to help them with their website. But what I discovered is that when my ideal client is in the like 300,000 to like up to like $5-10 million revenue range, and when you're in that range, pretty much every client I've ever worked with in that range is not doing enough with email. And I love helping them fix their website, but I kept realizing if only they would hire me to do their email, I think they could make even more, because I think a lot of the conversion rate optimization stuff, a lot of the real money making starts to happen once you hit that $10 million. That's when like changing your button copy slightly in certain places can really make a huge difference. But up until that point, you're not going to see as big of returns as you would if you invested more in email, because almost every e-commerce person I've met, unfortunately, is not doing enough with email. And it's just this really huge untapped resource. So since I've been now in the past, I think since the beginning of this year, I've been really focused on email. And my clients, it's really gratifying, because before it would help them unify their messaging. They would see benefits from it. Like they would go and then use my copy and test it. But I didn't really get ownership over those results. But now that I've been helping people specifically with their email marketing, I get to take them from 20% to 35% revenue from email, me and my team all the time. And it's super gratifying to get to do that for people.
Yeah, totally. Very cool. So, Katie, I know you started off more as kind of a solopreneur copywriter, and these days it seems like you've transitioned more into kind of a specialty agency model focused on e-commerce, email marketing, with other people working with you, working for you to implement the strategies and the copy and the things that you come up with. So, tell me a little bit about what your agency looks like and what makes you guys unique.
Yeah, so my agency, I mean, I would almost call it a micro agency. It's still a lot of me in it. But when you're sort of doing full-fledged management of an entire channel, there's a lot of implementation in different pieces. So I work with a designer to help me create the graphics that we need for emails. I work with virtual assistants who help me sort of implement a lot of my ideas. But a lot of the strategy and the copy that we do right now is still done by me. But I just have people who will maybe like edit it for me and help me make sure the quality assurance and everything is all still there. But everything that it takes to go from me writing the copy to it becoming an email that goes out, my team sort of handles all of those processes.
Mm-hmm.
But part of why I wanted to get into the email space is because I saw the way that email agencies operated, and I knew that the way that I operated was different than that, and that I could bring a different kind of value to the market. Because I saw that a lot of email agencies, and it makes sense why they focus on a lot of design and development. They really take that approach to it, because when you get the final results of an email, especially in e-commerce email, it's not true really in other industries, you more just get like a text-based email. A lot of what you see is the product of design and development. So a lot of agencies really focus on that, because that's the part that their clients are saying, I don't have a designer and a developer to make these things for me. Can you focus on that? But what I've seen with working with my clients is that email design is actually pretty simple if you break it down compared to like designing a website. I wouldn't feel comfortable like having my like hiring a designer. I'm not an expert in that area, but email design, because it's supposed to mirror what an actual email from a friend should look like, but with added design elements, it's a lot more stripped back. So we take a really sort of streamlined approach like around my expertise of what will convert best as far as design and development goes. And then my designer is the one who makes it beautiful. I know like what are the elements to convert. But then what we really focus on that I think other agencies don't focus on as much is the underlying sort of getting the offer right at the right timing and focusing on the copy that will really help it convert. So we if you were to hire a conversion rate optimization agency, they would sort of give you a period at the beginning where they're just researching into your audience. So we take that approach that a conversion rate optimization agency would use and apply it to email. So again, like when I'm working with clients in that $300,000 to $10 million range, I'm doing a lot of what a CRO agency would do for them at a higher level, but I'm using it on a channel like email marketing where they're going to see a lot higher returns from all the investment of research and understanding of their audience. And then they get extra added benefits from working with me, where I build out like something I call the conversion messaging playbook in our work together, which is what I was doing on website projects before. But then clients can see the things that I'm writing in their emails. They get that big document of me showing them the right messaging strategy to use, and then they get to apply it to all of their assets. And the cool thing as well is that since I'm sending out emails, split testing them, trying different things, as I'm developing the playbook, I'm going back and saying this email performed well and this email didn't perform as well. We're learning as we're building out that document, and it becomes this living, breathing document. So it's almost like conversion rate optimization just applied to email, and it has a lot of the same far-reaching effects. But I think when you don't have the traffic and transactions yet to convert that makes sense to invest in conversion rate optimization, then you can work with me and my email agency, and we'll make you all the added benefits to your revenue through doing that research. And then you get the added benefits of knowing a lot more about your audience than you knew before. And should I define maybe a bit more about conversion research for people who aren't familiar with it? I know I kind of glossed over that.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear like the sources that you go to, like what data are you looking at to sort of make your analysis of where to optimize emails?
Yeah. So after I've done enough projects now where it's definitely down to a specific process, especially in the e-commerce space, there are like unique things about e-commerce that aren't necessarily true in other spaces. So in e-commerce, you and I were just talking about how many new e-commerce startups there are. Competition is really, really huge. That might not be as important if you are selling like a service. There maybe aren't as many products competing, but with e-commerce, I think a lot of it boils down to who else is in this space. Like, are you charging more or less? And how are you going to justify your higher prices? A
Mm-hmm.
lot of my clients, I usually don't work with maybe like a drop shipping client where I think a lot of them are really competing on price. My clients usually have invested a bit more into the development of their products, and they're not white labeling their products. And then they're saying, okay, we have higher prices, we need to justify them. And I say, great, I know just the copy to write to do that. That's kind of how it works.
That's really cool. That's such a good USP, angle for your own business. Because every business, every e-commerce company that's selling a premium product, through their marketing, they have to communicate why it's worth it. They need to justify it somehow. And a lot of companies, like they just don't have the sort of ability or background to do that. So if you can go in and say, this is specifically what I help you do, and then, capitalize on that through email, it's such a specific like market position. I really like that. It's super cool.
Oh, great. Thanks. Yeah. And we've been really enjoying it as well, because I think our clients are looking for this specific thing. They want to see higher returns. And we've been able to, some of my clients have worked with email agencies in the past, and we've been able to improve on what they've done and see even higher returns for them. So it's going well, which is really great. Always
Nice.
very gratifying. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Katie, from a high level, what would you say makes for a successful e-commerce email marketing program, like in totality?
In totality. Okay. I could talk about a lot of things. I think definitely I could talk about maybe the biggest mistakes that I see every single time. I think if people sort of fix these mistakes, they could see a lot of returns. I think
Yeah, that's a good way to start.
Sure. So I think there's some big buzzwords that we all know, and then we hear about a buzzword and we're like, oh, segmentation, that sounds cool, and then we don't maybe do enough with it. I think segmentation is a big one that people don't. They hear that segmentation is good. They hear that they should be segmenting more and sort of dividing it up, but then it's sort of the devil is in the details of how to do that. So I think a lot of my clients don't do segmentation enough. They frequently will email their entire list, which I am then sometimes digging them out of the deliverability black hole, which can be a bit of a
Mm-hmm.
nightmare. That's a huge mistake, which I understand the impulse to want to email your entire list. So I sort of feel that way when I go into an email account as well, where I'm like, oh man, we've got 50,000 people. Can't we email them all? So I think one of the things that you can do is start just emailing your engaged segment, but have a really strong sort of sunset email set up, if you're familiar with that term, where when someone becomes unengaged on your email list, depending on how you define it, like if they haven't opened an email in a certain amount of time or something like that, there's different ways to define what considers someone unengaged and no longer on your email list. But if you then set that up and you have a really strong sunset plan in place where you're consistently emailing those people to try to re-engage them, I think it's put me at ease when I'm working with clients that I'm like, okay, we're not going to email this, 20% of your list that's no longer engaged, but we are going to email them maybe once a month to try to get them to re-engage and bring them back onto your email list. And then we feel more comfortable with that engaged segment. And then the unengaged segment, we can bring them back over anytime. So I think that is a big one that would help people. That's how I've been able to alleviate my clients' fears about only emailing their engaged segment. And it's worked well for us to re-engage some people. And then another big one that I see a lot is that as far as campaigns go, which I know a lot of people like talking about automated email because it's very cool and works very well, but I see the biggest opportunities actually with campaigns where a couple things, people aren't emailing often enough. They're really just under emailing. And I think maybe not having a specific process on how to set your emails up, maybe like not knowing what to write. There's just so many question marks, and then people really, really get in their own way by just not emailing enough. And I think there's sort of a standard out there that you should be emailing once a week. I've heard people throw that around, and I've sort of thrown that around as well. And I think it is a good standard if you consider emailing once a week to be your absolute bottom line bare minimum. If that's the bare minimum you set up for yourself and then you miss an email or two every month, that's really, really bad. Once a week is the absolute minimum. You should probably be emailing 2 or 3 times a week. But then I think one of the ways I've also helped my clients like alleviate that pain is that, okay, well, when you see this big newsletter that you're writing, because I think a lot of us will write, when we start writing emails, we think, okay, well, we need to include 10 different links and make this a really cool email that a lot of people like, there's so much in it. And I think if you took that email that you put 10 different links in once a week and you just broke it up into 3 different emails, each one with a different offer and a different link, it would increase your frequency. It would increase your conversion rates on each email, because like the fewer links you have and the more clear you are about the one offer of the email, that can really increase click rates. And you'll just see a lot more revenue from the exact same amount of work. So I've helped some of my clients through that process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we touched on this a bit, lifecycle automations, automated emails. When it comes to those, do you have like a framework or certain automations you always like to set up for clients?
Yeah, I would say there are, if I am working with a new retainer client and they don't have a really strong welcome sequence and a really strong abandoned cart sequence, we fix those right away. I may not even be done with my conversion research that I do for a new client yet, but we have already optimized those emails because they are the most critical to revenue generation of any of the flows that you can set up. So fixing those right away is always our top priority. So I think, or even if they're just maybe using a single Shopify notification for their abandoned cart, there's a lot of unrealized revenue there, where if you sort of use increasing offers as you go through an abandoned cart, or use increasing offers as you go through a welcome sequence, you see a lot more returns through that. So that's always where we focus first for automated sequences. They're the two that are like when in any Klaviyo account I go into, it's abandoned cart and welcome are the top 2.
Yeah. So talking about abandoned cart and sort of the offers that you send, do you like to send, say, 10% off, send them a reminder? If they don't take the bait, a couple of days later, 15%, 20%, that kind of thing? Is that what you like to implement?
I would say that's sort of like the jumping off point, right? And I think that there are some best practices for these automated sequences that are helpful, but then this is where it gets unique to the client. And this is why we start with analyzing their current email data. And we always talk about business objectives first, because we also like to look at your revenue of your store and look at some of those top level sort of important metrics for an e-commerce business overall. Because in an e-commerce business, you want to increase, it gets down to, I think it's Jay Abraham's 3 levers of what you can do to like increase revenue in a business. It's get more transactions. There's 3 different ways to increase revenue in business, which is get more transactions from the same customers. Number 2 is get more customers. And number 3 is increase the amount of money in each transaction. Yeah. And when you break that down for e-commerce, that is a number of customers, there's repeat purchase rate, and then that's average order value. Those are sort of the three big levers that you can pull. And those three combined sort of like equal customer lifetime value. So we're sort of keeping that as our top level metric that we know we're trying to optimize for. So when I go into a new e-commerce client's email marketing, I will look at that data and go, you guys, by the way, your AOV is really concerningly low, and we'll sort of focus on that and like how we prioritize things. So if, like, let's use that as an example. If average order value is really low, in their abandoned cart sequence, I might be trying to motivate people to increase their average order value. We can segment people on what the AOV was inside their cart. And we can say, hey, if you add $10 more to what you're already buying, we'll give you free shipping. Or then you are now eligible for this 20% off. So we'll sort of change some of those best practices to fit the business objectives of what the person needs to be optimizing for to increase those numbers.
Yeah, really interesting. I really like that, because I think there's a lot of good information out there, especially on like Clavio's blog and some other places like that, on how to sort of set it up template wise, right? There's like best practices on how to do it. And a lot of people just kind of use that to plug and play, and it works well enough. But if you take an approach like you're describing, you go in and you kind of start with the principles, like look at the numbers, look at the money, and then design based on that, you can really customize it and get a lot better results by doing it that way. So very cool.
Yeah, we really like to make sure that when we work with a client, we're sort of seeing them as a partner. And yes, it's our job to increase the revenue from email percentage, but we don't want to just take that approach and just only focus on email. We really also, when we build out a dashboard for a retainer client, we make sure that we're looking at the top line metrics for the business overall. What is customer lifetime value? What is the average order value? Are the things that we're doing going to help those top line metrics overall that are sort of outside of the specific channel of email, but will help us make our client more money in general. So that's really our overall goal. We try not to focus on email. We like to see how email can serve the bigger, higher numbers that are ruling the success of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. So Katie, what are some of your thoughts on running successful campaigns? What kind of approach do you like to take when it comes to sending email campaigns, as far as copy, frequency? Kind of touched on that a little bit, but like content ratio, sale to educational content ratio, things like that.
Yeah, so it depends a little bit on the client, I think, and their business. Some businesses are really built around sales. You see that, like, it reminds me a lot of JCPenney, where I can't remember the name of the guy, but JCPenney wanted to reinvent their image. And they had a guy who was high up at Apple, who is a famous person whose name I should know, but I can't remember right now. And he sort of came in and wanted to reinvent the way that JCPenney stores were run. I think he designed the Apple store. So then they brought him to JCPenney to do something similar. And he really did a bold approach where he kind of eliminated sales and really de-emphasized having these big billboard signs around sales, which was kind of like JCPenney's bread and butter. And sales at JCPenney after he did that just plummeted. It really didn't work at all, because it didn't match the expectations of the JCPenney customer. The JCPenney customer was a budget shopper who came there looking for sales. And if that was just eliminated, then they weren't interested in being there. And I think that that's really true across retail. Some retail businesses are built for sales, and that's the expectation of their customers. And some are more premium and they don't have that expectation. So I think understanding that going into it will heavily influence like how much you're emailing about offers and promotions and things like that, or if you're more focused on content. So that's part of why we really like to focus on the conversion research first, just because then we're getting to know the audience and we're making sure that our campaign strategy actually aligns with what people expect from them. But then I would say, depending on which of those, it kind of is in two categories for us, where I would say there's the discount heavy and then there's just the not very discount heavy. And when we've got a discount heavy client, we're regularly running sales. That's part of the promotional offer. But then we still try to keep it that for every 2 promotional emails we send, we will send 1 content heavy email. We try to keep that in mind. And we might not always hit that, but that's sort of like our reference point. And then the other kind of client that's not really emphasizing sales, we might do 2 content first emails where there's still offers in there. and then to one offer email. And that offer won't necessarily be a sale because they're not running sales all the time. It'll just be reminding people about different products on the store and sort of educating them in different ways about those products and how it might be relevant to their lives.
Yeah. I'm curious for the different kinds of copy, whether it's a sale, content, email, are you writing all that yourself, or are there any sort of element that you bring in team members to write?
Right now, I am writing it all myself. I think eventually we'll probably reach a critical mass where that will no longer be an option, and I'll have to put on more of the copy chief hat. But right now, we just have a few retainer clients, and I really like writing all the copy, so I'm going to hold on to it for as long as possible. But I think pretty soon I'm going to have to start hiring writers, and I will put on more of the copy chief role. But I think I have a lot of templates and systems. And one of the things that I use for writing my copy is that we have like a proprietary swipe file that I've had a few virtual assistants invest a lot into. And then it has all of, like, we will swipe a lot of emails from a lot of different companies. And then I have detailed written up teardowns and notes on every single email. And that's for my own reference as I write copy now. But as I hire other people, I plan to sort of include them in on that swipe file that we have, including all of my like expertise around what's working and what's not working in all these emails. And we'll use that as a training tool at our agency is our plan.
Is that the Trello system that you have set up?
Did you see my email about that? Yes, that is that system.
I saw it today.
Yeah, that's that system.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm. I've been subscribed to like hundreds of e-commerce email marketing accounts for a long time now. And we finally, in the past few months, organized it in a way that it's really easily referenceable and now has my notes in it. So it'll be easier to train people. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What other elements are important for success in e-commerce email? Things like list building and offer pages that you're sending people to after the click, A/B testing, or do you focus on any of those things in your process?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say probably the most important thing, especially in, again, like where my clients sit, that revenue range, the most important thing I would say is list growth, because we might, usually when we get a new client, they will already have some sort of opt-in that's working well for them. So when we immediately optimize their welcome and abandoned cart sequence, like I mentioned earlier, if they didn't have an opt-in, which actually I had a client once where he'd like taken down his opt-in, we just without even, like immediately after the kickoff call, we will put it up. It's just so important. And I think one of the things that we do on a monthly basis is we test a new offer for their opt-in to see if we can find something that's higher converting. It may not be as strict as a monthly basis, but it's basically when we prioritize what we want to test in automated email, in their automated emails and in their campaigns, at the number one at the top of the list is always a new opt-in offer. And there's a lot of different opt-in offers that work really well, and they tend to work very differently depending on the business. Like a giveaway offer might outperform for one business, and a spin to win sort of like prize winning one might work for someone else, and a percentage off might work for someone else. Those are all equally valid offers, and they've seen them work differently with different clients. Mm-hmm. But increasing the number of people on your list is probably the most important thing, because then just every bit that you invest into each email that you send is just going out to more people, and you stand to make more money from it. So I think if you're optimizing like a subject line and you're trying to go from a 20% open rate to a 30% open rate, if you've got 1,000 more people on your list, that makes a way bigger difference, those little optimizations. So we always focus on that first, and we regularly test. We would never find a good opt-in and then just leave it. We're always testing new offers and trying new things there to see what's going to work best. So that's always our number one focus.
Yeah. Awesome. Katie, who are some of the brands out there that you think are doing email the right way? Like, who are some of the companies that are in your personal swipe file that made it into Trello, that got the full kind of write-up?
Yeah, I've got a list of 10. I wonder if I can pull it up quickly right now. But some of the ones that come to mind, ones that I don't even filter them out and I just let them come into my inbox and I read them regularly. Chewy's, which sells products. Are you familiar with them?
Pet products?
Exactly. Yeah, they sell products for dogs and cats and I guess other pets. And I've purchased from them, but only because I'd been subscribed to their emails for so long, and then eventually I got a dog, so I needed to start buying from them. But they do email really, really well. And then I think one of the things that I really like about Chewy's is that they're always sort of doing primary offer pushes. Like they have like an initial point of why they're sending you the email. They're reminding you about something. And then they're always sort of have something secondary that they're promoting. And they really push their auto ship and save program a lot. And I think that they do it really well and really elegantly. And then just the way the design and the development of their emails is really like on point, as well as the copy. And then another big one that I really like is Bulletproof. Are you familiar with them?
Is that Dave Asprey, the coffee guy?
Yes, he did the Bulletproof coffee, but then he has a brand where he sells like all kinds of keto supplements and things like that.
Okay.
They do their email marketing really well, where again, they do a really strong, I think also because their brand, maybe with Chewy's, these are good examples of how content versus offers can vary based on the brand. Chewy's doesn't really quite need quite as much product education, I think, as something like Bulletproof does. There's a little bit of room there if you're trying to decide between dog brands, but Chewy's business model is kind of like, you need dog food, let's sell you some dog food, right? Whereas with Bulletproof, you're learning about the keto lifestyle. There's a lot to know. There's a lot of product education to be done there. So they're a lot more content first than Chewy's is. And they do a good job of mixing in pieces of content with just sort of mentioning their products right below it. And it feels very seamless, but looking at the two different like parts of an email where you're first reading an article and then you're seeing products, and it happens really naturally. So that the emails are really well done.
Cool. Yeah, that's two good examples. So let's talk a little bit more about just copywriting, pure copywriting. Compared to most email copywriters, you've got a defined step-by-step process. And what I'm thinking about here is a post that you wrote for Copy Hackers that talks a lot about stage of awareness, from the famous book, Breakthrough Advertising. Tell me a little bit about that, because it sounds really interesting.
Yeah, so I think when we went on that retreat in Tahoe, right, as part of we were in what is the name of the mastermind? The copywriter mastermind?
Yes. Number 4.
It's funny, looking back, it feels like it's a very generic name, the copywriter mastermind. But yeah, that was Joanna Wiebe of Copy Hackers Mastermind that Brad and I were both in. And so we were just going over this. This was about a year and a half ago, or maybe almost 2 years ago. And I sort of did a talk. We all presented at the mastermind, and I did a presentation about how my understanding of lifecycle marketing from email marketing, where you've got the beginning of the customer journey. And then as people and then once people become a customer, then they're really, they buy from you frequently and they're really engaged with you. And then eventually they sort of lapse. That's the customer life cycle. It kind of goes up and then it goes back down, where they're buying from you a lot and then they sort of lapse. But that's a big part of how automated sequences are set up, that they're built on those different parts of life cycle marketing. So you have to sort of keep that in mind. But then I sort of married that with Schwartz's stages of awareness, where at different stages in the customer buying journey, we have a different understanding of what our need is. That early on, we're only aware of our problem. And then later on, we're aware of products and different solutions and things like that. And then we become most aware and we want to buy. So I mapped those two across each other. And when I build out automated email marketing sequences for clients, and I use lifecycle marketing, I always keep stages of awareness involved in that. And I see this mistake a lot in my clients' emails before I rewrite them for them, that they will sort of treat a customer who just came on the welcome sequence as needing to hear the same information as someone who just bought for the first time, or someone who's bought repeatedly. Why someone is first interested in hearing about a product is very different from why they might keep coming back. Like, actually, I'm holding a client's water bottle right now. He sells these alkaline water bottles. And I'm working on that project now, so it's fresh in my mind, where I've noticed that earlier on in before people have purchased the water bottle, they're interested in it for some of the alkaline reasons and for some of the health benefits. But then the reason they keep coming back is because the water tastes better and it feels superior. So you sort of start to realize that people are focused on different benefits in their journey, and then you can speak to the right thing at the right moment when you've mapped it out accurately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Yeah. Very cool. Katie, who are some of your biggest copywriting influences? Who have you learned from the most?
Definitely Joanna Weeb, of course. We were in her mastermind, and that was a 6-month mastermind, and that was earlier on in my copywriting career. I wasn't brand new, but I was definitely a lot newer. So really taking that approach of conversion rate optimization research has been huge. And I think other sort of conversion copywriters like Leanna Patch and Momoko Price, I've also learned a lot from them. But then I think I've also had a lot of mentors along the way. Amy Posner, Mike Shreve, learned from a lot of people. So I've been very lucky to have a lot of different copywriting mentors. And one of the fun things about it is that they all take a different approach, and you get to sort of adopt different things from different people and build your own approach to it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, Joanna has been a big influence on me for sure. Like when I first discovered her process that does incorporate market research, conversion optimization, voice of customer research, I was like, that's how you do it. It's not as much like hype and bluster. It's like focused on the data, and that's what works. It's the most effective way.
Yeah. Whenever I read, try to learn from the old copywriting legends and take that more creative approach, I always find myself going back to using voice of customer data in the conversion rate optimization way, because you just get so much closer to what's in the customer's head. It just works so much better to use their own words to convert them rather than to invent them off your own head. Every time I try to go the more creative copywriter approach, I'm like, no, this doesn't work as well. I'm going back to conversion copywriting.
Yeah, it just works. Okay, so as you mentioned, Katie, we were in the mastermind with Copy Hackers Mastermind 2018. The final iteration of that, the final class that Joanna did. What kind of impact did that have on you in terms of business and kind of, how things have gone for you since then?
Oh boy. Okay. I remember, I think I've talked to Joanna Weeb about this, and it feels a little awkward to say because it's almost hard for me to overstate how much impact it had on me, because it was so like life-changing. Feels like a useless platitude, but that's like the best words I think I have to describe it. But I think she made me such a better copywriter. I had a lot of copy experience before that, but didn't have that kind of one-on-one mentorship from a world-class copywriter at any point in my career before that. And so working with her in that setting in a small group of people and getting her feedback on everything I wrote, I learned more in that 6 months than I had in years before that. And the confidence that I got in my copywriting ability and in the process, and I felt like, I'd gotten results for clients in the past, but I felt like I had a really systematic process that was going to help me not hit the nail on the head sometimes and miss it other times, but actually get it right every single time. And I think when you're doing work for clients, you need to be able to be consistent in that way where you're going to get it right. If you're doing your own marketing, you can flub it sometimes, but with clients, you've got a responsibility to them to get it right. So learning that process really helped me do that. And then from there, I've been really lucky to work with some very big clients, and it is a lot because of what I learned from Joanna and that process. And they saw the benefits of, doing all that conversion research and collecting all that voice of customer data. They saw what it would do for their business. And then I was able to, quadruple my rates or something like that through that 6 months, and work with a lot bigger and cooler clients for sure.
Very nice. Very nice. Katie, what do you see as the future of email marketing? How do you see things evolving the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, you sent me this question beforehand, and I'm glad I got to think about this one before, because I wanted to sort of ponder it a little bit. And I think actually the future of email marketing is that email marketing is actually pretty old technology. As far as if you think about all the different marketing channels that are available to you, email is a dinosaur. Email is basically the same. Email predates the internet. Email, you could send an email before the internet existed, and the technology has not really changed all that much in how an email is sent. I mean, now we have automated emails that are based off of triggers, but back, I think I wrote an article, or it's in my Copy Hackers article. I wrote about Gary Thork. I don't know how to say his last name. He sent the first spam email from an ARPANET terminal because that was what it was before. There was no personal computers yet, and this was in 1976. And we're still using that same technology for email now. So I think that something will replace email. Right now, we all check our emails 20, 30 times a day. But how you actually build out an email, it's very dated. So I think that something will come along to be better than email, and it will replace email. It'll sort of be like what WhatsApp did for texting. I think that there will be a future version where it's more decentralized and it doesn't require as much coding, and it will be encrypted end to end, and people will like that sense of privacy in their email marketing, and they will figure out some way to better block out spammers. Right now, they use algorithms and they give their best guesses as to how to get rid of spammers. But I think that some technology will come along in the future that will because spam is such a problem with email. There's way more of it there's a lot of laws to prevent it, but there's still like tenfold the amount of spam emails that there were 10 years ago. So I think that someone will invent a better technology that will replace email, and then email will be a thing of the past. But a lot of the same strategy will still exist because we'll still need something that's an inbox where we get all of our professional and different subscriptions, but it'll just look different than it does now.
Interesting. Yeah, very interesting take. I've asked that question to, I think, all my guests at this point, all the folks that I've had on, and they all have slightly different answers, but usually it's like email's not going anywhere.
Oh, really?
It's been, set in stone. It's not going away. It's not getting replaced. So that's it's interesting to hear your take on that.
Well, I guess I'm the rebel of the email marketing crowd. I guess I'm the rogue who has a contrarian opinion. I didn't know that was going to happen.
There you go. It's not a bad way to be.
That fits with my personality, so it feels right.
I think so. Katie, what kinds of cool projects are you working on these days?
I'm trying to think. Oh, I don't think I should talk about clients, so I think I'll sort of sidestep that of what I'm working on, because you never know until you're done with a project what a client feels comfortable with you talking about. But I right now I am deep in the weeds. I'm fully booked on client work, which is really great, and I'm really excited about the clients that I have. But one of the offers that I've been working on is something called the email accelerator, because I realized last year that working with just retainer clients or just clients who could afford to work with me on like a huge conversion research and building out the whole automated email sequence, that not every client, it didn't necessarily make sense to hire me on a retainer. It didn't necessarily make sense for them to hire me to do the full-fledged project, but I wanted to be able to help more people. So what I started doing was something called the email accelerator, where I'll have a client just send me a payment, send me a quick 8 question brief, I think it is now, that takes a few minutes to fill out, give me access to their Klaviyo, and then I fully audit everything that they're doing and build out an entirely new automated strategy for them. And like some of the things that we've talked about, in that brief, I find out what their business objectives are. And they might be doing some best practices, but I help them sort of based off of the data of what is currently performing and not performing, build out new strategies, write some of the copy for them, and actually do timing and different offers that make sense for how they want to grow their business and what they want their business to look like in a few years. Because automated emails are this really cool thing where when you've set it up the right way, if you don't have someone who's working in your email to constantly optimize it, if you can kind of set it and forget it, and it will do a lot of the grunt work for you. But you do want it to be custom to the kind of business that you're trying to grow. And every e-commerce entrepreneur has different goals. I will ask in that brief some like bigger life goals, like, Do you want to be on the beach somewhere in 5 years, or do you want this to be like a $30 million company in the future? Because those really, those trickle down to every sort of marketing effort that you do and sort of how you want to set them up. One is maximizing for revenue, and one is making your life easy and making it less headache to have to deal with while still making the kind of money that you want to make. So I build out the entire email strategy for a client like I would do for an onboarding retainer client, but then I just sort of hand them off everything, and we get on a call to sort of discuss out their new strategy, and then they're able to build it themselves from there. So I've been really enjoying doing that because it's helped me work with a lot more clients who maybe didn't want to pay my project fees or didn't need a retainer, and it's been really going really well.
That's great. For the folks who are interested, what is the best place for them to go to learn more about you and what it is you do?
Yes, so my website is katiethies.co, and Thies, it's IE, the same in my last name as in my first name. That's my little spiel, Katie, because then it's hard to know how to spell Katie and it's hard to know how to spell Thies, but it's IE in both of them. And then it's katiethies.co, and that's my website, and I do a little bit. I'm adding some articles there, but most of what I do, the way people can learn from me, is by getting on my email list. I send out a lot of information there and have sort of daily tips on how to optimize your email marketing.
Awesome. Yeah, I can vouch for those emails. I signed up pretty recently to your list and already getting a ton of value from the emails you're sending out. So for everybody who's listening or watching who wants to learn about email marketing, e-commerce, email specifically, definitely sign up for Katie's email list. Katie, great having you on. Really enjoyed chatting with you. Learned a lot. And I think listeners are going to get a lot of value as well.
I really enjoyed it, Brad. Thank you so much for this. It's great to catch up, and I loved having this chat.
All right. Take care and see you soon. You've been listening to Copy and Conversion with me, Brad Wages. If you enjoyed the show and want to hear more, you can subscribe via iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you prefer to listen. For show notes and a transcript of this episode, you can find those and more at bradwages.com. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.